Welcome to Laughter and Enlightenment with Sharon Gambrill here at Radio Northern Beaches 88.7 or 90.3 FM, or you can live stream through the website at rnb.org.au or through the app TuneIn Radio. Tonight's show is very exciting. My special guest this week is the very lovely Ros Ben-Moshe. She is the director of LaughLife Wellbeing Programs. She is also the author of Laughing at Cancer, How to Heal with Love, Laughter and Mindfulness. And for many years, she lectured in health promotion at Trobe University in Melbourne. Wow. Welcome to the show, Ros.
Thanks so much. It's wonderful being here.
That's rather a mouthful of exciting and very marvellous things that you work at and have some expertise in.
It's been many years of adding various feathers to my cap, like we all do.
We all do. We all go from one thing to the next, and it's a journey, isn't it?
Exactly.
Now, tell me, Ros, you were originally lecturing at Trobe University, so you've always had an interest in health and well-being. Was there a particular tipping point where you decided to go into more laughter work and using laughter as a health modality for you?
It was actually, I was lecturing in health promotion probably about 10 or so years ago. So before that, I was actually in the corporate world. And it was really a bout of ill health with chronic fatigue syndrome that sent me towards health promotion. And then when I was doing my postgrad studies, they were talking a lot about mental health.
Yes.
But what they were really talking about was stress and anxiety and depression. I'm thinking, hold on a second, that's not really mental health. And I'd been to a laughter yoga session at a World Health Promotion Conference in Melbourne at the sort of beginning of when I was sort of starting that particular journey. And I was so taken by it, and I thought, that is true mental health, you know. And so I, not long after, trained as a laughter yoga facilitator and started working with diverse groups. And it just didn't seem to matter whatever the group, you could just really feel the difference that laughter made. And in terms of mental health and a stress buster and releasing endorphins, I mean, there's not much better than laughter.
Yeah, I did find myself when I was going to a laughter yoga club in Sydney, and I'd read an article about laughter yoga and the health benefits and the stress relieving qualities it has. It really does work.
Absolutely.
I think I know we grow mirror neurons in our brain when we're in with a group of people who are sort of like-minded and have similar emotional state. And for laughter, it's a very positive batch of mirror neurons that we grow. And I find that it breaks down all the barriers. We all know how to laugh, and it's just a lovely way to connect with people, particularly people you may never have met before.
Absolutely.
People you work with, workplace stress relief programs, it's all very important and very useful.
Mm.
And Ros, do you have a daily laughter practice that you use, that you've developed?
To be honest with you, I'm more of a daily smiler than a daily laugher.
Yeah.
I get more of my laughs sort of incidentally, as opposed to with the smiling, I actually make a conscious effort. So I meditate every day, and as part of that, I have a smiling mindfulness component to that. So, having said that, I'm always consciously aware of, bringing laughter into my life. And for example, if I'm watching something funny, rather than keeping the laughter inside, I will laugh out loud.
Yeah.
Or wherever possible, I would choose to spend time with people that, the laughter is very real. Or naturally attend a laughter yoga session or facilitate a laughter yoga session. But for me, on a daily basis, the smiling is what's really, really captivated me, and probably more so since I had the surgeries for the bowel cancer that I had, because for 5 or so weeks I couldn't laugh even if I wanted to. So I had to think about other ways that I could get those endorphins flowing, and that's sort of what really stuck with me.
Yeah. And what year did you have your surgery, Ros?
2012.
Okay. And you're well on the road to recovery. You look fabulous and healthy.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it was just a year of stuff then, but thankfully it is in the past.
Yes. Well, I had my year of stuff in 2011 with my mastectomy, and so we're glad to put that behind us, but to carry forward all the healthy things we've learned.
Yes.
I know with smiling, I've read something about the actual muscles in the face, as they go upwards, signal something in the brain that it's almost like our mind and our body is a healthy team, and the muscles in the face going up starts putting the signal into the part of the brain that releases all those healthy healing hormones as well.
The interesting thing is that they've even found just exactly what you were saying, that even just putting a pencil between your lips, it actually triggered those neurotransmitters to release endorphins.
That's the word I was looking for, neurotransmitters.
I was waiting for you to get there.
Yes, no. Well, you're the smart lady.
I don't know about that. Anyway, so it's really amazing. And the thing about endorphins is, and as I say, whether it's laughter, there's loads of ways that we can trigger our endorphins, and that's. I think endorphins are just amazing things. Is that they are actually our body's endogenous morphine. They're 30 times more powerful than the synthetic version.
Goodness me, I didn't know that.
Well, most people don't, and the power of that really lies in they are our body's pain management system. So I don't know if you've ever led a laughter yoga session. I know that I have, and you'll ask people before a session how they're feeling and making a mental note, and often you'll find out afterwards they've had a headache or a backache or something. You ask them the same question after the session, and it's like, you know what? I did have a headache, or I did have a backache, but it's gone.
Yeah.
And that is endorphins in action.
Right.
They're flooding the system, filling yourself with that sort of feelings of well-being.
Yeah.
So, it's really, really powerful stuff. So
everybody who's listening, take some time every day to smile.
Absolutely.
To consciously smile. And even if you don't, I've actually done this in the car, Ros. If I've been driving and I felt a little bit stressful, and I'll close the windows and I'll put on some nice classical piano music or something uplifting, have the aircon on so it's nice and cool if it's a hot day, and I'll just smile.
Yes.
And I also do an EFT tapping technique, which you can't really show that through the radio.
No.
But I tap on my fingers.
We could tap the microphones.
Yes. I tap my fingers at a red light and I smile.
Yes.
Instead of wanting to go and punch someone, I find that works better.
Yes. And I'll actually say that that's something that I have done and do, on occasion, especially if I'm feeling a bit anxious or a bit stressed, I will laugh out loud in the car. Right. I will, I won't have the soundtrack or anything. And, you don't even have to be self-conscious, because people looking at you who pull up next to you, they'll just think that you're having an hilarious conversation with a friend. So, I used to do like 10 seconds or 15 seconds just of laughter, and it just changes your physiology like that. And it's an amazing stress buster. So, whether it's smiling, whether it's laughing, it's fabulous. And it's fabulous to do it in a situation where there is stress.
Yeah.
Like the roads.
It's the ideal antidote. And also I think you are instantly focused on something else, and it takes your mind off what you're worrying about.
Correct.
Or what your issue is, and it just gives you that instant relief. And then you can sometimes think, okay, maybe it's not as bad as I'm making out that it is. I'll choose another way to think about this.
Yes.
And that's always a good way to go, rather than holding all that stress in.
Absolutely. And the other important thing is that you actually can't be in two different emotional states in the same time. So what I mean by that is you can't sort of like be feeling all those negative thoughts and all those positive thoughts at the same time. It's one or the other. Yeah. So when you're smiling or when you're laughing, you're in that moment of joy. You're not in that sort of moment of fear, of stress, of, all those sorts of things. So that's how it works. We think we're so smart, but actually we can't be two different things at the same time. So and it's about consciously choosing to be in that state as opposed to leaving it to chance. Yes. And that's the critical thing. And I think that's why it is so important as a therapeutic tool for people who, it might be the last thing in the world they feel like doing is laughing or smiling. And certainly, when you've had a cancer diagnosis, or when you've got sacked from your job, or you've just, going through a messy divorce, like, why would you want to smile? Why would you want to laugh? Well, it's exactly in those moments that you need to laugh, you need to smile the most, because Otherwise, your body is just basically going to be one big sort of, cortisol, all those stress hormones.
Yes.
And the endorphins are the perfect antidote.
Yeah. Our body's very clever, isn't it?
It is.
And tell the listeners, Ros, with cortisol, there's some very unhealthy results from too much cortisol, isn't it? I know with short spurts of cortisol, our ancestors, everyone talks about the fight-flight response, which is now fight, flight, or freeze.
Yes.
They've added the freeze to it.
Yes.
And the blood rushes all to our extremities, so we can either fight physically or run.
Yes.
And or freeze.
Yes.
And then it takes away from the other functions that we have. I know our secondary systems, like our immune system, reproductive system, and digestion suffer when we're under chronic stress.
Correct.
And I know that that's a thing with anyone who's had a health issue or a diagnosis. You need to learn to relax. So your immune system will work, and you'll get all that working in a more productive way.
And one of the best ways to do that, as I often explain to people, is essentially what you're describing is we've got two nervous systems. We've got our sympathetic nervous system and we have got our parasympathetic nervous system. Now, the sympathetic nervous system is the one that tends to be in overdrive for much of the time, and that's the one that's there, exactly what you were saying about, it's ready for that pouncing tiger to come through the radio station any second. And the problem is, and I think that what you were saying about the fight, fright or freeze, is that I think that so many of us have actually frozen in that stress state, which is a really, it's like, yes, it was there for a specific reason, in terms of evolution, to protect us. But if we're frozen in that state, it becomes counterproductive. So we're in that cortisol, it's negative. So this other nervous system we have is the less dominant one, the parasympathetic nervous system. And that is responsible for feelings of calm, of peace, and of well-being. And one of the best ways to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system is through breathing.
Yes.
Deep breathing. Now, what that does is if you do repetitive deep breathing for a period of 10 or so minutes, you're actually hailing into the body what's called the relaxation response.
Yes.
Now, when your body has sort of succumbed to that relaxation response, that's sort of what cues your immune system into thinking, I can start to function better now. So, and that's sort of also what I found in laughter. I think that because necessarily you have to breathe to laugh. Yeah. It also signals in that relaxation response, but you've got the added bonus of endorphins. So it's a really important thing for us to be aware of our breathing. In terms of, most people, especially if we're sort of more sedentary, leading, less active lives.
Well, we do, generally speaking.
Yeah, so we're breathing more shallowly from the chest, or if we're really stressed, if we have had a shock, we're not going to be taking nice deep breaths in initially. Yeah. So it's us taking control. It's not waiting for the deep breaths to naturally just happen. It's thinking, okay, I can actually recognize that my body is in a stress state now. What do I need to do? Oh, you know what? I can take some nice deep breaths. Yeah. And I can actually know that by doing that, I am hailing in this relaxation response, and I am doing everything I can to sort of move my well-being, back on track.
That's right. And it does signal your secondary systems, your reproductive and immune system and digestion to work in a far more productive way, because we'll still breathe and our heart still beats and our blood still circulates when we're in those moments of chronic stress or when we've had a shock, but the secondary systems are the ones that tend to not work as well for short periods of time. So having these tools and knowing that they're available is very important.
It's really important. It's very empowering, and I think that I just don't know if people really understand how critical they can be in terms of an amazing thing that we can do for our well-being.
Yeah, it's an important health modality.
Correct.
And I know with it's breathing is apart from the relaxation of it and getting more into control and feeling empowered again, it also brings that oxygen hit. And so all your cells are saturated with oxygen, and you have that boost, don't you?
Yes.
And oxygen's very important for our cells.
Absolutely.
I believe.
No, absolutely.
So
in terms of concentration,
concentration.
memory, and all of those, absolutely, it's fundamental.
So you feel alert, but yet relaxed.
Yes.
And that's a big component in a laughter yoga or a laughter wellbeing type session that you and I both facilitate.
Yes.
Well, I think on that very happy note, another thing that we can do to have laughter and oxygen and all sorts of wonderful things coming into our bodies is singing and dancing.
Absolutely.
And I think it might be time for a lovely, lovely piece of music, Ros.
Okay.
What do you think? Can you think of a song that you like that will get you singing and dancing and maybe jigging around and breathing in and out?
Sure. How about Walking on Sunshine?
Oh, that's a wonderful song. That was Katrina and the Waves, I believe. That if you are sitting down at the end of this song, you haven't been listening.
Yeah, excuse me while I get up.
Yes. Well, if you hear some noises around the place, it'll be us dancing. So we're going to have Walking on Sunshine with Katrina and the Waves. And that was Walking on Sunshine with Katrina and the Waves, a lovely old song. And we're all up dancing and singing. It's like a great old party song, isn't it? All our endorphins are going.
It's fabulous.
And facilitate a lot of programs and sessions and wellbeing programs with workplace. What can you suggest for people who are in a stressful workplace that they can do? Have you got any little health tips or stress-busting tips for people who are working in an environment that isn't usually something that they would call relaxed? So have you got any little secret tips they can do that may help them? We've talked about breathing and smiling.
There are many things that people can do. I talk about this sort of, when I do individual coaching, again, at the end of the day, it's whether it's an individual or an organization. It's really about, it's such a complex thing. So one of the things that's really important is actually, as much as possible, trying to align what you do with your core values and core beliefs and your strengths. So if, for example, you are a really great people's person and you like helping people, if you're in a job and basically it's just a desk job where you just sort of, you're not able to use your strengths, that's going to actually lead to some sort of more internal stress. And then there's one of the most powerful things that I can think of in terms of when you're in a less than optimal situation, whether it's in a workplace or a life circumstance, is actually to become consciously grateful about things, some of the things. So say, for example, you're working with someone who is really challenging, and basically that will sort of mean that all you're going to be thinking about is all of that things that person's doing that's really annoying you or you find challenging. The trick is to try and find something in that particular interaction or situation that perhaps you can appreciate about them, or something that has, that has gone well. So there's these things that Professor Martin Seligman, who's sort of the founder of positive psychology, talks about the idea of, on a daily basis, recounting 3 things that went well. And I think that's really, really important when you're in a stressful work environment, stressful life environment, stressful stress. And it's not about the big things. It's about thinking about the little things that are going well. Because when you're going through a lot of stress or adversity, it's not necessarily going to be those huge things like, yes, the promotion, or yes, the holiday. It's you're going to have to sort of tone it down a little bit. So it could be the fact that, oh wow, my boss actually listened to me today. Yay. Or I got a smile out of someone, or I managed to leave work in time to go for a walk on the beach today, or whatever it is. So it's about training your brain to notice the good, to take in the good. Now, where that is important is, as I said to you earlier in the interview, when you are noticing and taking, noticing the good, you're not thinking about the bad. You're not
That's
thinking
right.
about all of that stuff that's like really pissing you off.
Yeah.
So, and the more that you actually do that, the more you will see. It will become an unconscious practice. So in time, what might have been a really super, super stressful situation will actually become a bit more tempered. So you can actually see some potential good outcomes, some lightness, some positive something in that. And one of the best ways of doing that is on a daily basis, actually thinking about 3 things that went well. And if you were talking about specifically about the workplace, make it specifically about the workplace.
Yeah.
If you're talking about just generally, just do it generally.
Yes.
But in any area of your life where you're struggling the most, that's where I would challenge you to do it.
Yes. And then when you start seeing those more positive aspects, you start looking for them, and then you want to see them. And it's got to do with the neural pathways in our
That's
brain
right. It
and
changes.
synaptic
That's
connections.
right.
It actually
Precisely.
changes, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Through the neuroplasticity of our brains, we can actually change our state and how we think of things.
Yes.
And then it becomes hardwired.
That's right. So, what fires together, wires together. So
It's an interesting study, the brain.
yeah, it's and really it is a matter of what you place your attention on, what you focus on. That is what grows. So
That's it.
you want to practice stress, you want to practice fear, you want to practice whatever, you get great at it.
Yes.
Why not try and practice
Yeah.
conscious gratitude? Why not try and practice smiling? And then it becomes a second nature as brushing your teeth in the morning.
And I've also read about the power poses. Ros, have you heard of those? They
Yes.
call one of them the Wonder Woman pose.
Yes.
And I believe there's one, and I think it's a positive psychology method as well. Is it the fist pump in the air?
Yes.
As well? And that actually has a physiological response in the brain, doesn't it? Have you read about that?
I have, yeah.
Confidence building, and
Yeah.
again, I
Yeah.
think the Wonder Woman or power pose for women, I think it does trigger a small release of testosterone.
Really?
Yes, so you feel more powerful.
Excellent.
You might not be able to fight as well as Wonder Woman, and you may not look like her in that outfit. But
That's a shame.
yes, it is a shame, but you'll feel like it.
Excellent.
So there's wonderful things we can do, mind, body, health. It's all very important.
I think a lot of these things I really started to actively do when I was really trying to do everything I could possibly do to promote my healing after, the bowel cancer surgery. And now, 6 years down the track, it's like stuff I don't think about, but I remember very much it was a conscious choice back
Yes,
then.
yeah.
And it was just like any practices, like, your commitment to go to the gym or whatever. This was my commitment to myself to really actively seek out things that create a positive change, in my body.
What would you advise listeners to do in your situation with your diagnosis? Did you go and get it? Was there something worrying you and you went and got it checked immediately?
Yeah. So basically I had in previous years, I'd actually had a Giardia parasite, which was courtesy of a family holiday in Thailand.
Yes.
And that sort of led to some blood in my stools. And then a year or two after that, I thought, I must have got another parasite. And I'd actually done a stool sample for, bowel, business.
Yeah.
And there was nothing there. But I just basically was, how it is, you either have diarrhea or there was blood or mucus in the stool. I'm thinking this doesn't really feel that right. And so rather than send me away, my GP, thank goodness,
Yes.
said, let's just, at the time I was 42.
Young.
A non-smoker. I wasn't obese or anything like that. She said, let's just get you checked out. We'll just get you checked out sort of top to tail and, then we'll move on. And basically, it was through a colonoscopy that they found the polyp, which initially I was told was fine. And it was only about 4 or 5 days later that they got the toxicology back to say, actually, I'm really sorry. That polyp is a nasty and there are some cells outside it. So I was essentially presented with 3 options at that moment in time. And I had 2 boys, 12 and 15, and a life ahead that I was very much looking forward to living. And so the first option was to not do anything more, because essentially the gastroenterologist had removed the polyp and I could walk around for the rest of my life with my fingers crossed behind my back and hope that the cancer hadn't spread. Second option was to do a partial bowel resection, which would most likely get rid of anything but extraordinary. In this era of high-tech medical advancements, the only way to assess the lymph in that part of the bowel, which was in the rectum, is to actually do a full bowel resection. So the only way I could be certain that the cancer hadn't spread was to do the full bowel resection.
Yeah.
And because it was very low down in the bowel, as say in the rectum, I actually was told I would need a temporary ileostomy. So that's a bag that sits on the outside of the stomach to enable healing. And so, so that's essentially what I did. And thankfully, we found out that the cancer hadn't spread, and even more thankfully, the ileostomy, I could get, the bowel could be reconnected, because they couldn't give me 100% guarantee that it would be able to be reconnected again. So, as I say, I was sort of in that situation where, for many years I had already been a laughter yoga facilitator. I was in the health promotion space, and I had been very great at preaching to others about, laughter being the best medicine and this, that and the other. But it's very different when you actually really need to live.
That's right.
These changes. So I became quite a big advocate for mindful breathing when I could breathe, because after that surgery it's rather painful. You can, for many weeks you can't, even move. And as I say, that's really when I made a commitment to myself, that, okay, I palmed off. I said, right, the doctors can take charge of the illness, but I'm taking charge of my wellness.
Yes.
And what do I want that to look like? Well, essentially, I want it to be as optimal as possible. And I knew how much of a negative impact stress has on the body.
Yes.
And it's a natural thing that when you get a diagnosis like that, there's a lot of those F words, the fear, the frustration, all those things. And so how do you counter that? So for me, it was putting pen to paper, which actually enabled a little bit of distance from my lived self, and it really enabled me to do a little bit of reframing. It really enabled me to take control of one aspect of my well-being, and sort of try and it was a very powerful modality. That's what they talk about, therapeutic journaling. So that's sort of what I did, and that's sort of what sort of then became the book.
Ros, did they suggest any kind of treatment after the surgery? Did you need any?
No, because the cancer hadn't spread.
So that was very wise that you went and got it, and luckily for you, you had a very good GP who wasn't being skimping on any extra things. They trusted you and said, yes, let's get it all done.
That's right.
For anyone listening, early diagnosis is the key. Obviously, it would be nice if we never had to have anything wrong, but we still have human bodies that need to be looked at. So if you find a lump or if something isn't right, trust your body and go straight away and get it checked.
Absolutely.
Ros would say that too.
Oh, no, totally. And I mean, I think the thing is that it doesn't really matter of the individual specifics, but anybody sort of in some sort of overwhelmed situation, whether that's, relationship, health, whatever, you do sort of lose you feel like you just don't have that control. So whatever you can do to sort of like gain some control for your situation and really sort of get in touch with your inner resources.
Yes.
Don't always defer to the expert and sort of think that, well, you don't have some of the answers, because you do have the answers.
That's right.
You've got to really believe that they're there, and, just, that confidence in really accessing.
I think with a diagnosis like that and with ongoing care for that, you do find strength you didn't know you had.
Yes.
And when we're talking earlier about positives and looking for positives, if that's the only thing you find that out of all of this situation, which is fairly awful, that you find strength you didn't know you had, then that's one good thing.
Absolutely.
And then years later you can pass it on to someone else who's falling apart and say to them, look, you'll get through this.
Yes.
It's fine. And particularly in Australia, the healthcare and surgery and medicine is top notch. And we have a lot of resources here for treatment and early diagnosis.
Yes, no, absolutely.
Yeah. So don't delay. If you're a bit scared, take some deep breaths, put on some uplifting music, try and watch something funny and go to the doctor and get it sorted out as early as possible. And I think we might celebrate Ros's good health and her excellent results and the fact that she's healthy and happy and going to live a long life with another song.
Okay.
A song of celebration.
A song of
celebration. I was going to say a song of Solomon.
Well, you know what? Let's just a lovely, is that happy song.
Yes, with Pharrell Williams.
Yeah,
that's a great song.
Yeah, it's just
you can't beat it.
Exactly, I can't sort of move past it really.
I think we feel very happy, and I'm very happy to have Ros on the show tonight. So let's have Pharrell Williams singing Happy. Pharrell Williams singing Happy. And this is Laughter and Enlightenment with Sharon Gambrill here at Radio Northern Beaches. And I have my lovely guest Ros in as my guest this week. And I'm going to ask you now about your book, Laughing at Cancer, How to Heal with Love, Laughter and Mindfulness. So this came about of you originally journaling. Did you write some blogs about what you were going through, Ros? It was just journaling for yourself.
Well, yes and no. It started off as, getting out the pen and the paper and writing it for myself. But really, within a couple of entries, I realised as much as I was writing it for myself, I was actually writing it for a future envisaged readership, which might sound crazy, but it's true.
No.
And I think because I was an educator, I kept sort of thinking, well, if I'm thinking this, I wonder, surely other people might be thinking that. So I would, at the end of each chapter, I'd have these sticky notes, questions. It's like, how would you think if you were in this situation, or if you, had a cancer diagnosis, and, how would you like to refer to it, or how, what are some of the things that you do to make your heart sing or whatever. So at the end of each chapter, there is reader engagement, and it's interesting how it evolved. As I said, it did start very much for me, but and it was a lifesaver, because it does give you that sort of power, the power of the pen.
Yes.
And and it really helps. It's like, it's a dumping ground for some of those negative thoughts, and it also helps provide some perspective, which you don't necessarily have when you are just sort of living through a situation.
Yeah, when you're in the thick of it. It's hard to think clearly, and this gets your thoughts down.
Yes.
And what you've learned and everything all put together.
Yeah, so basically the way that I realised was that it ended up being 4 different journals, and it'd include my little drawings. It would include some of the mindfulness techniques that I used, some of the laughter stuff, positive gratitude, all those sorts of things, and just how at times I would sort of draw on those things, and I would sort of note how so in real time how it was affecting me, and how other people can use these strategies and apply it in their own lives.
And Ros, as far as your condition, did you change your diet and what you were eating and drinking particularly?
Like after the surgeries.
After the surgeries, yeah.
I used to joke that it's like I should have taken up fast food and all of that.
That's
right. I never had a sweet tooth.
Oh,
I
my
never
goodness.
ate junk food, all that sort of thing. I know, I'm a disappointment.
Yeah.
But yeah, essentially, because the surgery entailed losing 30 centimeters of bowel, and it's also, I now have a man-made rectum, which not too many people can say.
Wow. Oh, that's something to boast about.
Yeah, it is. It's so it's never going to be the same as the system that we are born with. So essentially, there's a shorter transit time. So most people who have the same operation as me would find that, counter to most people's advice to prevent bowel cancer, you actually need to adhere to a low fibre diet.
Okay, low fibre.
Because anything too fibrous will just pass through your system too quickly, cause you a lot of bloating, cause you a lot of discomfort. So, so I would, for example, now choose to have cooked vegetables as opposed to a salad.
Okay.
I am, not great with raw foods.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And some people swear by raw foods and that's all they have. But I think in any case of diet and what you're going to be eating, it's for the individual and what your needs are. So that's a very important point if you have had the kind of surgery you've had, to really look into what is. And also, I think with high fibre foods in your situation, you wouldn't really absorb all the nutrients, would you?
That's exactly
wouldn't have the time.
No.
It's just in and out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you taken up smoothies or juices or broth
or
anything
I go through
like
phases.
that?
I go through phases.
That you
of all
recommend?
things.
I find it all a bit much to have to clean it up afterwards.
Yeah.
But,
Again, it's about intuitively knowing what your body feels like. And I think that, I've got relatively good at that. So I will sort of know, if there's some days that I sort of need to eat, more substantially, or there's some days I'm like salt is, but, I'm being called to like more salty foods.
Yeah.
Just honouring your body and being responsive to that. And also just learning what you can get away with. So,
Yes.
it's not like every day I'm going to eat, really clean food as such. The steamed vegetables. There is some
treat.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you use herbs or spices as a general rule?
Yeah, I love them.
Yeah, turmeric's supposed to be very good for us, I believe.
Yeah, anti-inflammatory.
Cinnamon, turmeric, and I think you have
Ginger.
the turmeric with the black pepper, and it brings out the qualities, activates
right.
it, and that's kind of a not just flavoursome but good for our health too. So bear in mind all of that. I think we will ask Ros also, what kind of relaxation techniques do you do to help going forward with your health and how you handle stress? Because we'll all have sometimes of the day, and some things are on our mind. Do you, talking about meditation or relaxation techniques, what do you like to do? Do you go walking, or do you just go and lie down and have a nap?
Well, there's essentially some sort of go-to things for me. One of the main things I find is that there's just constant stimulation, noise.
There is,
everywhere.
Isn't there?
So for me, it's about actually getting into some silence. So actually, a time where it's just quiet time.
Yes.
And during that, I will sort of focus on my breathing, and I will sort of, focus on smiling, and again, I will sort of have different sort of emphasis on different things according to what I feel like I need on the day. So some days I will just do purely a smiling mindfulness practice, or other days I will just it'll be more focused breathing, or other days it will just be sitting and not thinking, or other times it might be like a directed thought. It's like, wow, I really need to clear something, so I really need to pose that question before I sit down. But essentially, it's really not a big commitment, but it's become very sustainable for me.
Yes.
I set my timer for 25 minutes. That's it. And that is literally what saves me.
That's your time.
And because I used to I didn't used to have a sustainable constant practice, and I think that people sort of think, when am I going to have time? And again, it's not about having time, it's about making time, it's about timetabling it. So now I just know every day somehow I need to, and maybe it's not 25 minutes, it could even be 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And if I've got a busy day, and if I'm not going to have that silent thing, then I will adapt my practice. So say, for example, I used to call it my waiting room mindfulness practice, where I would close my eyes and I would count to 10, count to 10 and back, where each breath is one. So in 1, in 2 and 3 and 4, it keeps going up. And if you lose where you are, because there's all these distractions going around, either internally or externally, you just go back to 1. So for me it was, and it still is, I'm very grateful that I've got a lot of tools that I access, that I bring to my daily practice.
And would you do this early in the morning to set your day up, or any time of the day, or before bed?
So there's two rituals I have.
Yeah.
One ritual is the mindfulness ritual, which I generally do between 2 and 3, something like that, because I find that that's when the body's naturally sort of has a bit more of downtime. Obviously, if I'm running a program or whatever, then that's not possible. But generally, sometime in the afternoon, because it just helps set me up for, the evening and whatever, and running around, and, when the kids were younger especially. The other ritual I have is recounting before I go to sleep, as I'm lying in bed, 3 things that went well in my day.
Yes.
And that has become a ritual. It's like, every day I think about things that I'm grateful for, things that went well. And honestly, these things have transformed my life.
Yes. Very, very good advice. And
very doable.
Very doable, everyone. Focusing on just 3 things. There's always at least 3.
Yeah, exactly.
And you'll probably find that once you get started, there'll be more than 3.
Exactly.
You go, life's not too bad, actually.
It's because it's addictive, because the way that it works is gratitude, and that it actually feeds into that sort of quartet of happy hormones. So making, the dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins. It's part of
love all those.
We do, and gratitude feeds into serotonin. So that's why it's addictive. When you start to think of some, your body thinks, oh, wow, I quite like this.
Yes.
I'm going to think of more.
Yes.
So that there's a chemical response that's happening when we are recounting those things. That's why it is so effective.
Yes, yes. And Ros, do you do any kind of physical activity that you would recommend, or is exercise and something like those kind of practices an individual thing? Do you go walking? Do you go hiking?
I love walking.
Swimming?
I'm not a swimmer.
Yoga?
I do Pilates and yoga and walking in nature. And I'm not a gym type of person. I'm very much sort of connecting with the natural environment.
Yes, I believe that's very good for our body and soul.
Yes.
And the fresh air.
Yes.
And I know waterfalls and sea spray have all those lovely negative ions in.
I don't have them in my back garden.
No. We put a little water feature. I know, get your hose out and just run underneath it, like we used to do when we were children and there were no water restrictions.
Yeah.
Run up and down over all the bindies on the lawn and have the hose going.
That's right.
Yes, well, that wonderful days. Do you have any Australian music?
I do.
Do you have
one of my favourite songs is by the Whitlams, and the song's called Melbourne.
Melbourne.
Which is where I'm from.
You are from Melbourne, so that's an appropriate song.
It talks about this girl who calls her dog a bear, and I have a dog that, and I've always sort of had dogs, and, they've been like bears. So.
And you have a dog now, Ros?
Yeah, I do.
And do you find going walking with your dog a therapeutic way to spend some time?
Yes and no.
Dog walker?
My dog's getting on in years, and he has various joint issues.
Oh no!
So I find just being with him is very therapeutic, but not necessarily walking with him.
Yeah, I know some assistance dogs and guide dogs, and they have therapy dogs now. You see them on planes even, and in aged care centres, and just the act of stroking the fur is very therapeutic.
Right. Because again, that goes back to oxytocin.
Yes,
that's the touch.
Yes,
it's vitamin. It's the hormone of love.
It's love, and it's nice that in this day and age where everything is can be quite impersonal, to have that sense of touch.
Absolutely.
And you can even just touch your own arm if you're feeling a bit lonely. I think just give yourself a hug, and soft toys and pets and everything. That sense of touch, I think it does do lovely things to our oxytocin levels, etc. And I think it's also a form of stress relief and everything. Absolutely. And so we're just about to wind up our interview today with our lovely guest Ros, and I think we'll have her Australian song Melbourne by the Whitlams. So we're going to would you like to introduce this song for us, Ros?
And now we're going to play for you Melbourne by the Whitlams.
And you're listening to Laughter and Enlightenment with Sharon Gambrill here at Radio Northern Beaches. And we're just about to finish off our interview with our lovely guest this week, Ros. And Ros, would you have any, apart from everything else you've suggested, can you think of anything else apart from the general idea of when you've had a diagnosis or a health issue, always get it checked out? You would always recommend going and having, do you have a yearly checkup or a couple of years?
I have colonoscopy sort of every 3 years. But the first 5 years is after any cancer diagnosis is different. You've got your 2 monthly checkups, your 6 monthly checkups, your annual colonoscopies, but now it's thankfully, down the track.
Yes.
But other than that, the one thing that I haven't mentioned that I think is really important to anyone, no matter what they're going through, is self-compassion.
Yes.
You know, self-compassion is a really important self-care technique. And you were talking about touch, just comforting yourself. It's like you're doing as well as you can.
Yeah.
And, your body's doing as well as it can. Your emotions, whatever it is. So really offering yourself some self-compassion. I think we're really great at being compassionate to others.
Yes.
Whenever I work with people, I ask them to sort of assess, how compassionate are you to others and how compassionate are you to self? And there's generally a
discrepancy.
So, it's I'm not saying you shouldn't be compassionate to others, but just especially when you're going through tough times, you can be really hard on yourself. It's like, oh, why did my body have to do this? I'm so fed up with myself.
Yes, yeah.
And it's like, that doesn't really help.
No.
So, self-compassion is a really wonderful thing. And,
Talking kindly to yourself. And I think giving yourself some credit for coming as far as you have.
Absolutely.
And we'd like to give Ros a lot of credit for coming on the show tonight and also for writing a wonderful book, Laughing at Cancer. And where can we find your book, Ros?
It's on Kindle. It's on Amazon, Booktopia, many bookshops in Australia.
Yep.
Where else? If you want it, personally inscribed, contact me, and I'd be delighted to send you a copy. And I'll throw in postage as long as you're within Australia, so it won't cost any more than if you were to go to your bookshop.
And how do we find your personal website, Ros?
Well, I've got two. So my company is LaughLife Wellbeing Programs, and that's www.laughlife.com.au. But there's also a dedicated website for the book, which is laughingatcancer.com.
Okay, so there are two ways you can find out more about Ros and her wellbeing and laughter programs, and also her wonderful book. And thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you. It's been absolutely awesome.
And remember to laugh. Laugh and smile, everyone.
Absolutely.
And don't skimp on that.
No.
And until next Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m, Laughter and Enlightenment will be back next week. And until next week, have a happy, healthy and laughing week.